to be honest, I can't believe that we're still doing this. Really. There is this seeming desire to be able to wish or will other players into Caitlin Clark's level of popularity. And that is not something you can just make happen. You can't say it and make it the case. In fact, look, it would be great if it was the case. It would make everybody's job easier. The players, the people who cover the league, everybody. It's not said with rooting interest, but no one's even close to the level of popularity that Caitlin Clark has achieved. And it wasn't manufactured. It just happened. It is what it is. I mean, she's been out for 2 months and is still the topic of discussion. Not to mention the ratings and the attendance numbers and teams moving to arenas and the Nike deal and jersey sales and all-star votes and any way these things can be measured. So simply saying somebody else should be this, or you wish somebody else was this, or somebody deserves this, doesn't make it this. And all of those attempts are going to be missed. And the latest one, it was Sue Bird, Megan Rapinoe, and I guess they were reading from an article that had been written about why Paige isn't popular enough or not as popular as Caitlin. And here it is.
There was an article, and its premise really is like, why isn't Paige, probably what people think is, why isn't she as popular as Caitlin? But do you think Paige should be more popular? What do you think is contributing
Paige is
to
really
this?
popular.
I think she's really popular too, but like in a different
No, I think it's
kind of
specific.
way.
I think what I would say that I'm noticing that's lacking for not just Paige, honestly, everyone in the WNBA, including Caitlin. I know she's not playing right now. It's like, where is the more? So we all know there's like the media coverage pie that we only had 4% at one point. Now it's up to 15, 16%, which is great. And now it's like we're all wanting more. We're wanting to be 20%, 25%. And I think at times when people say Paige should have more, they think that means taking away from Caitlin, and it doesn't. Caitlin deserves everything she gets, and Paige deserves more, and Angel Reese deserves more, and Asia, and Fee, and.
Yeah.
I think specific to Paige, you might argue her popularity and the people that are fans of her has been underrated, which shocks me. And I think people forgot how popular and how engaging Paige is and how people are drawn to her. She should be followed and covered in a way that is similar to what we saw with Caitlin, because that's how popular she is.
Yeah.
It's not to compare them and it's not to diminish Caitlin. That's not what it's about.
Right.
It's just about talking about Paige. I think it was undervalued, underrated.
So Paige is popular, and she's certainly in the discussion for most popular WNBA player not named Caitlin Clark. She's certainly also in the discussion for the most natural rival for Caitlin Clark, given their relative college careers and how good Paige is and where they are relative to each other in the WNBA. But with that said, and I also don't disagree with the premise of, it'd be good if she had more and Angel and Fee and Asia and everybody else that Sue listed there. I've been a big proponent for that. And then I love to point out that the WNBA as a whole, you have Caitlin Clark numbers up here, you have Fever numbers here, you have the rest of the league here, but the rest of the league is higher than it was before Caitlin Clark arrived. And that's a good thing. But the league will be healthier when it's less reliant on Caitlin Clark as the catalyst, the sun that the rest of the universe orbits around. It will be a healthier league when it gets to that point, and hopefully it does get to that point. But the more is lacking this year. The easiest explanation for that is Caitlin Clark hasn't been on the floor. And there's only so much you can, squeeze, the juice you can squeeze from that with her not actually playing. And it's a testament to her and that popularity that I'm talking about, where, again, I do it. So don't get me wrong. Nobody's. It would make my life easier if everybody drew as much as Caitlin Clark did. I mean, I didn't. This whole thing chose me because of Caitlin Clark's popularity and seeing it like through my lens of my career, having not experienced a phenomenon like that before. It was natural, it was organic, and then seeing the support that she gets and still gets. to the point where her and Dewana Bonner's interaction is the story from the game, or her relative popularity when she's not playing with Paige is still the story when other teams are playing and the playoffs are coming up. But no matter how many times people wish it to be or say it or hope for it, it just isn't true. And it's not going to be true. Maybe in the future, not to say somebody else ain't going to come along, because that would be naive too. Michael came along and then LeBron and Steph, and maybe they weren't Michael necessarily in their transformative nature, but the baton is passed. Shaq and Kobe to LeBron to Steph, Bird and Magic before Jordan. But that ain't there now. And, everybody else like Paige is getting more shine because of Caitlin. I mean, Paige is more popular in the WNBA than she would have been pre-Caitlin. And all the other players that were named are more popular now than they would have been pre-Caitlin. But when you set aside fandom, rooting interest, any of that stuff, you put it all to the side. It doesn't matter. Just look at it. It's the gap is massive. And saying it ain't changing it. More media coverage won't change it either. I could do the Paige Bueckers show every single day. It ain't going to change what is. And again, you can look at all-star votes. You can look at television ratings. You can look at attendance numbers. You can look at jersey sales. You can look at trading card sales, what they're going for, relative rate. There is no metric that doesn't return the same answer. There was, nothing. There is nothing. And I guess it's just, I don't understand where the lack of acceptance comes from. And I'm not calling out anybody specific. It's just a continuing topic, because they're quoting from an article there. But that article has been written 20 different times. And the answer is she isn't as popular. I mean, it's pretty much as simple as that. Caitlin going to Iowa is part of it. The flair of her game, that's a big part of it. What other, she's the most entertaining to watch to me. She's most exciting to watch. I think she's better, relative as a player, regardless. But there's a connection. There's just a connection to the fans. And no amount of words, whether typed or spoken, are going to make a difference there. And I hope everybody else's popularity continues to rise. That'd be great. I'm not rooting against that. I'm not saying it needs to only be Caitlin. Trust me, because that's also a weird mentality too. What Sue was kind of pointing to there and saying, you think you're taking away from Caitlin, because I agree with that. I agree everybody else can have more. But where I don't agree is that there's an equivalency, because there's no evidence that supports that.